sing of gladness and cheer, for the time of Christmas is here. Look around about you.
Well, the holidays are just around the corner. You know what that means?
Lots of family time.
And lots of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And here at Endless Brain Fluff,
We love movies.
we love all kinds of movies.
Especially holiday movies.
Especially holiday movies. So we're doing a Christmas movie special.
Ooh, fun.
We are going to be watching two very different but equally enjoyable takes
Mm-hmm.
on the classic A Christmas Carol.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
The 1970 musical Scrooge
Yes.
and the 1988 dark comedy Scrooged.
I love that one.
We're going to be unpacking those delightful holiday themes, but also laughing at all the nostalgia.
And a little bah humbug.
Exactly.
You know, there's something about those Christmas classics that just draw us back year after year.
Absolutely. So let's start with Scrooge,
Okay.
turning Dickens into a musical.
It's a bold move.
It is a bold move.
It's not the first genre that comes to mind,
No, not really.
but Scrooge does it with a surprising amount of charm.
It really does.
I think a big part of that is Albert Finney. He was only in his mid-30s when he played Scrooge.
Really?
Yeah, and the transformation with all that makeup is incredible.
It's amazing what they could do with makeup back then.
I know, right?
And Finney really embodies that grumpy, miserly energy.
He really does.
I mean, his rendition of I Hate People.
It's just perfection.
If you had to pick a holiday theme song, would it be Thank You Very Much or I Hate People?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
I know.
Probably. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's so catchy, and you just can't help but tap your feet along.
Yeah.
I hate people. I hate people. People are despicable creatures, loathsome, inexplicable creatures, good for nothing, kickable creatures. I hate people. I abhor them. When I see the indolent classes sitting on their indolent asses, gulping ale from indolent glasses, I hate people. I detest them. I deplore them.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me.
It sounds a bit bizarre, but things the way they are, I feel as if another life's begun for me.
It perfectly captures that joyous transformation that Scrooge goes through.
It really does.
Speaking of the music,
Yes.
isn't it strange that the soundtrack for Scrooge was never officially released on CD?
It's really a shame.
It is?
Because the music is so good.
It's so good.
I think there were some legal issues surrounding the rights to the songs.
Oh.
But thankfully you can still enjoy them in the film.
Yeah.
And speaking of the film, the visuals are quite stunning.
They are?
They actually reconstructed entire Victorian streets for the movie.
Wow. Talk about dedication.
I know.
I especially love the opening title sequence with those whimsical illustrations by Ronald Searle.
It really sets the stage for this magical world.
It does. And you know those illustrations are actually a pretty big deal in the art world?
Yeah, Ronald Searle is known for his darkly humorous style.
Oh, wow.
Which adds another layer of depth to the film.
I love those little details.
Me too.
They make Scrooge so memorable.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, the film stays pretty true to Dickens's original story,
It does.
hitting all those key plot points with the three ghosts
Yep.
and Scrooge's journey toward redemption.
It's interesting how Scrooge itself has become a bit of a classic.
Yeah, it has.
I mean, it inspired a stage musical and even that recent animated remake in 2022.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
This version of A Christmas Carol has resonated with audiences for decades.
It really has. All right, let's jump ahead a few years
Yeah.
to the totally rad world of 1988 and talk about Scrooged. Now, this is where we trade Victorian London for the fast-paced world of television.
Yeah.
And instead of a traditional Scrooge,
Yeah.
we get Bill Murray at his comedic best.
The best.
That's Frank Cross,
Ah.
a cynical TV executive.
Talk about a modern-day Scrooge.
I know, right?
Brilliant casting.
Isn't it?
Bill Murray's comedic timing is just perfect.
It's perfect for this role.
You know, Scrooged was actually Bill Murray's big comeback.
Oh, really?
After taking a 4-year break following Ghostbusters.
Wow.
He really went all in on the comedy with this one.
And thank goodness he did. Scrooged is full of those classic Bill Murray one-liners and over-the-top gags.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just Murray's performance.
Right.
The entire cast is stellar.
It is. Carol Kane is the ghost of Christmas Present.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Instead of a gentle, ethereal spirit, we get this tiny manic pixie with a violent streak.
It's pure comedic gold.
It is.
And then you've got Robert Mitchum
Oh, yeah.
as Frank's no-nonsense boss.
He's great in that.
And all those celebrity cameos.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a who's who of 1980s pop culture.
It is. From Lee Majors to Miles Davis.
To Mary Lou Retton as Tiny Tim.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Amazing.
Despite some initial mixed reviews,
Yeah,
Scrooged has become a beloved holiday classic for so many.
it's true.
There's just something so wonderfully irreverent and relatable about it.
It definitely doesn't shy away from poking fun at the commercialism and cynicism that can sometimes overshadow the holidays.
Right.
And it does it in such a clever and entertaining way.
So here we have two very different adaptations of A Christmas Carol,
Oh, we do.
both of which have found a special place in our hearts.
They have.
It makes you wonder, how can two films made nearly 2 decades apart both be considered classics?
That is a great question.
And I think the answer lies in their ability to capture the essence of Dickens' story,
Yes.
while also reflecting the cultural attitudes and comedic sensibilities of their respective times.
It's like they're two sides of the same Christmas coin,
I like that.
each offering a unique and insightful perspective on the themes of redemption, generosity, and the true spirit of the holidays.
Exactly. Now let's delve a little deeper into how each film reflects the era in which it was made.
Okay.
It's like taking a trip back in time, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to see how these films, while being so different in style and tone, ultimately deliver that same timeless message about the importance of human connection, especially during holidays.
I can't wait to unpack all of that with you.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is like stepping into a time capsule, isn't it? With Scrooge, you get that classic 1970s vibe.
It really is.
With those lavish musical numbers and that heartwarming sentimentality that was popular back then.
There will now be happiness and contentment in this room, the like of which none of us has ever seen before. Begin.
Of all the days in all the year that I'm familiar with, there's only one that's really fun. December the 25th.
Correct.
Ask anyone.
It's like a big warm hug in movie form.
It is.
But speaking of those musical numbers, you mentioned earlier that some critics found them jarring.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was?
Well, I think for some people, the musical format might have felt a little too lighthearted.
Oh.
For such a dark and morally complex story.
Yeah.
I mean, Dickens was really tackling some serious social issues in A Christmas Carol, like poverty and inequality.
Right.
Maybe the musical numbers just took away from that gravitas for some viewers.
Yeah, I could see that, but personally,
Yeah.
I think the music adds to the emotional impact of the story.
Okay.
Like, take that scene where Scrooge is confronted with the ghost of Christmas future
Right.
and sees his own lonely graves.
Yeah.
The music swells.
Oh, please, I beg you.
It does.
And you can just feel the weight of his regret and fear.
Yeah.
It's powerful stuff.
You're right. There are definitely moments where the music elevates the emotional stakes.
Yeah,
And I think it's worth noting that musicals were incredibly popular in the 1970s.
they were.
You had films like Fiddler on the Roof, Cabaret, and Grease,
Huge hits.
all hitting box office gold. So it makes sense that they would try to capture that same magic with Scrooge.
It's like they tapped into that cultural zeitgeist
Exactly.
and brought this classic story to a whole new audience.
Exactly. And it worked.
It did.
People loved it. It was a huge success.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still enjoyed by families today.
It is.
That's the power of a good musical.
Yeah,
It can transport you to another world
it really can.
and make you feel all the feels.
Now, Scrooge takes a completely different approach.
It does.
Instead of embracing the heartwarming tradition of the musical, it goes for the jugular,
Yeah.
using satire and dark humor to skewer the excesses of the 1980s.
Oh, yeah. It's a much more cynical take on the story, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But it's also incredibly funny
it is.
and insightful in its own way.
Yeah,
The 1980s were a time of big hair, big money, and big shoulder pads.
oh yeah,
And Scrooge perfectly captures that over-the-top materialistic energy.
absolutely. And Bill Murray is the perfect choice to play Frank Cross. that cynical TV executive who's all about ratings and profits.
Yep.
He just embodies that greed is good mentality that defined the decade.
He does. And the film doesn't hold back in its critique of that mentality either.
It really doesn't.
It satirizes everything from the commercialization of Christmas to the obsession with television and celebrity culture.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that scene where Frank is pitching his insane Christmas special?
Oh, yeah.
Complete with exploding presents and a violent Santa Claus?
I love that scene.
It's so ridiculous.
It is.
But it also holds up a mirror to our own fascination with spectacle and sensationalism.
It's a perfect example of how Scrooged uses humor
Yeah.
to deliver a thought-provoking message.
It does.
It's like laughing at ourselves.
Yeah.
Even as we recognize the absurdity of it all.
Exactly. And I think that's why it's resonated with audiences for so long.
I think so, too.
It's not just a silly Christmas comedy.
Wow.
It's a sharp social commentary that's still relevant today.
It really is.
In some ways, it feels even more relevant now. With the rise of social media and our 24/7 news cycle, we're constantly bombarded with images and messages that try to sell us something.
Right?
Whether it's a product, an idea, or even a version of ourselves.
It's like Scrooge predicted the future of our media landscape.
In a way, it did, and I think that's part of the reason why it's become such a cult classic.
Yeah.
People connect with its cynical but ultimately hopeful message.
Right.
Because despite all the darkness and satire,
Yeah,
Scrooge still offers a glimmer of hope.
it does.
Frank Cross eventually redeems himself,
He does.
just like Scrooge does in the original story.
And that's what makes both Scrooge and Scrooged such enduring stories.
It is.
They remind us that it's never too late to change, to be kind, to embrace the true spirit of the holidays.
Father Christmas.
It's a message that resonates across generations and cultures.
It does.
It's about the importance of human connection, of generosity, and of recognizing that true wealth lies in the relationships we build with others. It's about the enduring power of hope and redemption.
Speaking of the power of storytelling,
Yeah.
I think it's amazing how both of these films use different cinematic techniques
Yeah,
to tell the same basic story.
they do.
It's like they're speaking different languages,
Right?
but they're both saying the same thing.
That's a great observation, and I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about how each film reflects the era in which it was made.
Exactly. Scrooge with its classic musical format.
Yes.
Full of elaborate sets and costumes and those big sweeping camera shots.
Yeah.
Feels very much like a product of the late 1960s and early 1970s.
It does. It's like a grand stage production brought to the big screen.
I like that.
It's all about spectacle and grandeur.
Whereas Scrooged, with its fast-paced editing, its use of handheld cameras, and its more naturalistic acting style,
Yeah.
feels very much of a product of the 1980s.
It does.
It's got that raw energy
Yeah.
and that in-your-face humor that we associate with 80s comedies.
And I think it's interesting how both films use special effects,
Oh, yeah.
but in very different ways. In Scrooge, the special effects are used to create a sense of magic and wonder.
Yeah.
Like when the ghost of Christmas past takes Scrooge back in time to his childhood.
Right.
It's all about creating a dreamlike atmosphere.
While in Scrooge, the special effects are often used for comedic effect.
Yes.
Like when Frank is tormented by the ghost of Christmas present, or when he sees a vision of his own fiery demise.
Leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake.
It's a much more tongue-in-cheek approach to special effects.
It is.
And it works perfectly for the film's comedic tone.
It does.
But what's fascinating is that both films, despite their stylistic differences, ultimately achieve the same goal.
They do.
To transport us into this world of Dickens's imagination and to make us believe in the possibility of redemption.
And they both do it so well.
They do.
It's no wonder they become holiday staples for so many people.
They're films that we can return to year after year and
Yeah.
still find something new to appreciate.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a catchy musical number, a hilarious one-liner, or simply that heartwarming message of hope and goodwill.
So we've talked about how these films reflect their respective eras.
We have.
But let's dive a little deeper into the specific cultural context that shaped them.
Okay.
I think it'll shed even more light on why they've resonated with audiences for so long.
Yeah, when Scrooge came out in 1970, the world was a very different place. It was, you had the Vietnam War,
Right.
social and political upheaval,
Yeah.
and a general sense of disillusionment among many, especially young people.
So it was a time of great change and uncertainty.
It was.
So maybe people were just looking for a bit of comfort
Yeah.
and escapism
Mm-hmm.
in their entertainment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And Scrooge, with its traditional values,
Right.
its heartwarming story of redemption, and its toe-tapping musical numbers,
Yeah.
offered a welcome respite from all the turmoil of the outside world.
It was like a reminder of simpler times,
It was.
of the things that really matter.
Yeah.
Family, community,
Mm-hmm.
the spirit of generosity.
Exactly. And I think the fact that it was a musical probably added to its appeal.
Right.
Because musicals were often seen as a form of escapist entertainment.
Yeah.
A way to transport audiences to a world of fantasy and wonder.
And who doesn't love a good song and dance number?
I know, right? Especially during the holidays.
Especially during the holidays.
Now, fast forward to 1988,
Okay.
when Scrooged hit theaters.
Right.
And you have a very different cultural landscape.
you do?
The Cold War was winding down,
Right.
the economy was booming,
Okay.
and there was this sense of optimism and excess in the air.
It was the era of greed is good.
It was.
Wall Street tycoons and yuppie culture.
And Scrooge taps into that cultural zeitgeist perfectly.
It does.
It takes the classic Scrooge story and just transplants it into this modern world of corporate greed and media manipulation.
It's like a satire of the 1980s,
It is.
holding up a mirror to all the excesses and absurdities of the time.
Yeah, and I think that's why it resonated so strongly with audiences. It was funny.
It wasn't.
It was biting,
Yeah.
and it felt relevant to their lives.
It did.
People could see themselves, or at least people they knew, in the characters and situations depicted in the film.
It was a comedy that made you laugh, but also made you think.
Exactly, and I think both Scrooge and Scrooged, in their own ways, reflect the enduring power of Dickens's original story.
Absolutely.
No matter how much times change,
Yeah.
the themes of redemption, generosity, and the importance of human connection continue to resonate with us.
Because deep down, we all want to believe in the possibility of change.
Yes.
Of second chances, of finding that spark of goodness within ourselves, even if it's buried under a mountain of cynicism or greed.
And that's the magic of A Christmas Carol.
It is.
It reminds us that it's never too late to turn things around, to make amends,
Yeah.
to embrace the true spirit of the holiday season.
And whether you prefer the traditional charm of Scrooge or the edgy humor of Scrooged,
Yeah.
both films offer a unique and entertaining take on this timeless tale.
They're both must-watches during the holiday season.
I agree.
Guaranteed to make you laugh, think, and maybe even shed a tear or two.
I don't know whether you can hear me, old Jacob Marley, and I don't know whether or not I imagined the things I saw, but between the pair of us, we finally made a Merry Christmas, didn't we? Have to leave you now. Must go and get ready. I'm going to have Christmas dinner with my family.
And from all of us here at Endless Brain Fluff, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. We'll be back next time to explore something new and exciting. You know, all things brain fluff.